All right, welcome back, Sebastian here. So time for my preview for the 2025 Emilia Romagna Grand Prix, of course, also known as just the Imola Grand Prix for shorthand. So first, taking a look at the track, the Imola circuit. Of course, we've raced here for a long time, and we'll get to those details in a bit. But for the track layout itself, just the one DRS zone down that main straight, from partway down that main straight into turn one, the Tamburello chicane. Now, for the track itself, very narrow, overtaking very difficult. So this is going to be a race where qualifying is going to be very important and highly likely, unless we have some kind of fluke safety car or some weather, that the qualifying order is going to be pretty close to the race order, especially given how bad or how little overtaking there's been at some tracks, such as Suzuka, for example. But in terms of overtaking, really your best chance, I think, is going into turn one, the Tamburello chicane. But sometimes you can make a move going into the chicane on the back straight as well. In the junior Formula 2, Formula 3, you do have a couple more options. In the lower categories, you will see overtakes at Tosa, and you will see them into the first of those final two corners as well. But the first sector of the lap, basically it's Tamburello chicane in two straight, so straight line speed, very important, low drag as well. And then of course you have the Villeneuve chicane followed by Tosa. Sector 2, you have some pretty tricky medium to low speed corners, but these are corners that can definitely catch the drivers out. Especially Aqua Minerale, towards the end of Sector 2. And then Sector 3, you basically have the final chicane there, plus those last two corners. So pretty fun layout to drive. I think the drivers really like driving here. It's one of the more beautiful tracks on the calendar, I would say, but it's just a shame that in terms of wheel-to-wheel racing, if that's what you're looking for this weekend, you're probably going to be a bit disappointed with this Grand Prix. So the track itself, 4.909 kilometers. We're expected to have 63 laps on Sunday. The race lap record, I should say, is a 1:15.484 set by Lewis Hamilton in 2020. The average speed of that fastest lap is 234 kilometers an hour, which ranks 7th of the 24 tracks on this year's calendar. And because of the way it's set up, pretty long straights, lots of slow speed corners, the downforce rating that I've calculated for this track is actually very low, 0.05. We might see drivers put a little bit more downforce on, but it should be one of the lower downforce tracks of the calendar, I would think. Full throttle, 79%, makes sense given how long those straights are. And the corner tendency is medium, but it does have quite a few slow speed corners as well. But it does have, I think, compared to, for example, Miami, which we were just at, does have the cornering speed is a little bit higher than Miami, for example. Now, for the tires, a bit of a new one this weekend. We actually have the introduction of a brand new compound, the C6 tire. So C6 will be the soft compound, medium C5, and the hard C4. So it'll be interesting to see how it goes. But again, like I said, because overtaking is so difficult, highly likely it's basically just going to be a one-stop, starting on the medium C5 and then switching to the hard C4. The C6 is likely only going to be a tire that's used in qualifying. Now, of course, if you didn't miss it this past week, we do have a driver change coming into this Grand Prix. Alpine, of course, are replacing Jack Doohan with Franco Colapinto, and apparently that contract is reportedly 4 or 5 races, but it may just be a front to make it look like they're being fair. I think realistically, highly likely that Colapinto is going to be in for the rest of the season, so it should be exciting to see how he goes. I made a video talking about the driver change, so if you're curious my thoughts in more detail about that, you can watch that video as well. Now, taking a look at the schedule for this weekend, I've included Formula 2 in here as well. So Friday, FP1, 1:30 in the afternoon, Formula 2 qualifying, 4 in the afternoon, and then FP2 is at 5 p.m. The weather for FP2 is expected to be sunny and 18 degrees Celsius. Saturday, FP3, 12:30 in the afternoon, with Formula 2 sprint race at 2:15. Finishing up the day is F1 qualifying at 4 p.m. local time, and the weather for qualifying is expected to be 21 degrees and partially sunny. Then for Sunday, the big day, Formula 2 feature race, 10 a.m. in the morning, followed by the Grand Prix starting at 3 p.m. sharp. The weather for the start of the Grand Prix, it's expected to be sunny and 22 degrees. So the temperatures are lower than we've had in some recent tracks, like Saudi Arabia, Bahrain, for example. So again, thermal degradation should be less of an issue, which means that for McLaren, their big advantage that we saw in Miami with tire preservation may not be as apparent here. And again, because it's so difficult to overtake at this track, this could be a weekend, I think, where it's, I think, more likely than some of the last couple weekends that we've had, more likely that someone other than McLaren wins this weekend. Now, taking a look at last year's race, this race was, of course, won by Max Verstappen, Lando Norris second, and Charles Leclerc on the podium in third. Start, pretty clean start. I think Verstappen starting on pole, Norris P2, and Verstappen getting a good launch off the line to into the first corner. Not a particularly eventful race, so this kind of recap from last year is going to be quite short. But Alex Albon, he had a pretty disastrous race. His tires weren't fitted on properly, so he was forced to basically pit again, and that really wrecked his race. Perez as well, in the middle of the race, had a bit of a trip through the gravel. I believe dropped a couple positions there, but that was one of the few moments from last year's race. Now, taking a look at best and worst qualifiers at this track, we don't have a lot of data to go on because really this track came on the calendar in 2020 during COVID. Of course, we didn't have a race in 2023 because of the flooding that year. So for a lot of these drivers, they don't have a ton of data. So some of these results are not particularly representative, but let's go over it anyway. So best qualifier, a bit of an interesting one again, is Lance Stroll, plus 26%. So that means he's outqualified his opponent or his teammate 26% more than his career average, but still median qualifying gap is 0.088 seconds against him. Number 2, George Russell, plus 25%. He's been really good at this track. Median qualifying gap, 0.3 of a second for him. And number 3, Yuki Tsunoda, plus 17%, median qualifying gap 2.3 of a second for him against his teammates here. Now, worst qualifiers, number 1, Fernando Alonso, not a big surprise. He had a pretty shocking race last time out, and given how few races we've had here, it's not a surprise that would skew the picture a bit. So negative 45% compared to his career average with a median qualifying gap of 4.6 of a second. I expect those numbers to be much better this weekend. I don't think Stroll's going to be out qualifying Alonso by 4.6. I think it could be close, but definitely not by that margin. Number 2, Lewis Hamilton, negative 38%. With a median qualifying gap of 0.18 seconds. I think another thing as well with the way I've calculated this, I've calculated basically against their career average. And again, for some of these newer tracks, Miami, Saudi Arabia, Imola as well, because I'm only using qualifying data from 2010 onwards. So, not the refueling era. That obviously for these drivers are not as good as the qualifiers as they were in their prime. So again, makes sense that maybe those stats would kind of be skewed against them. And number 3, Carlos Sainz, a bit of an interesting one, negative 21% with a median qualifying gap of 1.8 of a second. So taking a look at the quality model predictions for this weekend, I've basically got all the drivers here who are predicted to out-qualify their teammates. So those drivers are Piastri, Leclerc, Verstappen, Russell, Alonso, Colapinto, surprisingly enough, Ocon, Lawson, Albon, and Hulkenberg. For Lawson, Hulkenberg, no track-specific data this weekend, so it's basically just a median qualifying gap, plus basically the race, what's been predicted. And again, as we get more races, that data should get better. I'll talk a little bit about the Colapinto one. So Colapinto, of course, was Albon's teammate last year. Colapinto did pretty well, I think, in qualifying compared to Albon over the course of those 9 races together. So that's basically used as a reference for basically comparing against Gasly. And then the other reason, in fact, is that Gasly has a very poor record at Imola. Not quite as bad as the 3 that I mentioned before, but that has actually skewed basically the data enough that it actually predicts that Colapinto will out-qualify Gasly. Don't think that's going to happen. I think highly likely Gasly out-qualifies Colapinto first time out, but I do think Colapinto will give Gasly a tougher run for his money than Doohan was, for example. So, finishing up with some predictions for this weekend, I think realistically, McLaren's been the best car this all season. They basically have been de facto best at every track. I do think qualifying is going to be very important, and Verstappen's been on a very, very good run of form in qualifying this year. That being said, not sure how likely it is. I think if the McLarens can get a perfect lap together in qualifying, I do think that they're likely going to get pole position. Norris has had a very inconsistent start to the season in qualifying, but he has been better recently. And given that this is a race where overtaking is difficult, assuming he gets through the first couple of corners, I think Norris has a very good chance of winning this race, and he did pretty well here last year. So I'm actually going to take Norris for the win. I think first time in quite a while, or maybe first time this year, I'm not going to predict McLaren 1-2. I'm actually going to predict Verstappen in second. I do think, on the balance, I do think Norris and Verstappen are still probably the best two qualifiers out of the top between the two of them and Piastri. That being said, Piastri's no slouch. Obviously, he's I think much better in qualifying this year than he was his first 2 years. So again, I think it's going to be very, very hard to predict. But I do think qualifying is going to be, a pretty big determining factor in the end result of the race. So because of that, I'm going to put Piastri on the podium as well. So two McLarens, but split by Verstappen. I think Verstappen will have a bounce back weekend. At least in terms of results. He's been very, very good at this track, and I do think there's a couple more medium-ish high-speed corners. Some of those chicanes like Cambrello, Villeneuve are a little bit higher speed. They're not like super conventional, very slow speed chicanes. And because those kinds of medium, higher speed corners favor the Red Bull a little bit more than the slow speed stuff, I do think that for Verstappen, I think that with his, how well he's been driving recently, I think that should be good enough to get him on the podium. But of course, because the Red Bull setup window is so small, it could very easily go the other way, and they can have a shocker of a weekend like they did in Bahrain. So there you go. There's my preview for the 2025 Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. Last thing I wanted to say as well, for race review, I think I should be able to do for Formula 2. Unfortunately, probably not going to happen this weekend again. I know the races are actually at a decent time for me. I could watch them live, but I'll actually be in Tokyo this weekend watching the Tokyo E-Prix. So pretty excited to be able to watch Formula E for the first time live. But obviously because of that, not sure if I'm going to have time to watch Formula 2. The F1 review should be fine though, because the race is going to be Sunday night my time, and then I'll probably watch first thing Monday morning before work. So there you go. Thank you so much for watching, and goodbye.